What's going on, collective? Happy Saturday to everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Well, I just finished another reading, and thank goodness we're closing off the week, at a little bit better style than, we had yesterday in terms of the energy. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to try to keep these a little bit shorter whenever possible, okay? Um, they're my gift for Gab allows, we'll see. So, anyways, the overall energy for the week, which ends, at midnight tonight, is that of Gibo, the gifting rune. Basically, it talks about giving, receiving, balance, reciprocity, things of that nature, and also in terms of everything in regards to, exchanges of any kind, also including contracts, so maybe the signing of a contract, and it also deals with all manners of relationships, personal relationships, partnerships, love, and divine unions. Okay, so if you are out there in the collective and you're looking for some type of partnership with somebody, it's clearly coming. Okay. All right. So with that being said, the past energy, or the energy I pulled last Sunday for today, this Saturday, is that of Degaz. And Degaz is basically very similar in many ways to Gibo in terms of, balance. It talks about daylight versus nighttime obscurity. It talks about, again, clarity and growth. It talks about ambition. It talks about breakthroughs of many kinds, breakthroughs in stagnation, the breakthroughs of an idea, for example, something you've been pondering but haven't had a solution for. It's telling us that basically, it's coming. So it talks about awakening, awareness, consciousness. It talks about, the release of something. And we all have to give things up in order to make room for something new, for example. All right, so it talks about basically this is the time to embark on a new venture or enterprise. It talks about the power of the will to make changes in one's life. It talks about cosmic consciousness and awareness, awakenings, transformations. It talks about security and certainty, and it talks about balance, the place where 2 points come together. Okay, call this black, white, yin, yang, male, female, whatever. Again, it's a balanced energy that we're talking about here. Okay, so very, very similar. Now, our present energy is also a very good one in regards to this. It talks about, first off, it's Yera. This is the rune Yera. It too is in the upright. Now, Yera talks about your harvest, okay? Harvesting from earlier efforts made manifest at this time. It talks about possible legalities, but also success in that type of thing. So if you're going to, or you are involved in any way, shape, or form with some type of dispute in a legal manner, you will be successful. It talks about peace, talks about commitments. It talks about, things such as peace and happiness. It talks about this is a season of truth in your life. Again, breakthroughs and stagnation. So that's a common theme in today's reading. It talks about your hopes and expectations being made manifest. Peace and prosperity. So a lot about peace. It talks about promises of successes earned. And in other words, you put your efforts into something, those fruits are about to be made manifest for you. Again, results of earlier efforts realized. And it talks about the cycles of life, cycles of the universe, all the different cycles that, we can see in one's life. So that's Hiera. Now, in terms of our obstacles and challenges for today, what we have is Urus. Urus, but it's in the reverse. Now, Urus is typically a very positive rune, talking about health, strength, vitality, that kind of a thing, because it's modeled after the great ox known as the Aruk, which was basically hunted into extinction 500 years ago or thereabouts. Okay, but as you might imagine, in the reverse, it has quite the opposite energy attached to it. So somebody who's weak-willed, has low energy, they're being drained. I mean, literally, they have attachments that are simply siphoning the energy right out of them like vampires, suck the life force out of you. They have done that to others. Now it's being done to them from a spiritual perspective. So illness is also a very distinct possibility. Weakness, somebody who is obsessed, having a misdirected force, dominant or domination, I should say, by other people in their lives. Again, sickness, lust, somebody who's inconsistent, ignorant, brutality and violence is a part of this. Somebody who's rash and callous. So that is the obstacle to otherwise a very, very positive encompassing energy for us for this day. So again, this involves, probably, it doesn't necessarily have to be, the specific karmics that we've been talking about in our lives. It could be literally, anybody that is manifested this kind of energy in their life, but you are going to be basically challenged by that particular energy in some way, fashion, or form. So I always say that the odds are probably that it is. I can't just, wrap everything that's bad into the realms of the karmic. It doesn't always, fit, and it doesn't always feel right. Sometimes, we may be going through some of these energies on our own, but I would assume that most of those who are literally in the collective have already done their shadow work. So things such as lust and brutality, ignorance, and things of that nature are not typically associated with those who have done their shadow work and, are among, if you will, those who have been chosen. I hate to use that terminology because it has a negative connotation to people who have religious, I just say that they have, ill feelings towards anything that is, religious. But I come to you in the form of spiritualist, spirituality, not religiosity. I don't believe in dogma, and I do what's right, regardless of what the crowd says. I go by my conscience. I go by my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs. Okay, and I know that it basically is generally centered around the idea of, the golden rule in some way, fashion, or form. Do unto others, treat them the way that you want to be treated. Okay. Now, of course, not everybody is going to respond in kind to what it is that you put out there, and that's fine. You handle it the way you need to handle it, the way your heart tells you, the way your gut tells you, the way your mind tells you to handle that. Okay. And there is justification at sometimes to stand up and fight. We're not here to be beat down by these people who have given in all this devil energy and everything else. We have to love them. We try to show them through our actions and everything else that, there's another way. And the way that we're trying to teach and that we're living is the way of truth. We're trying to grow. And they have chosen the coward's way out, basically. Sometimes it's because they just haven't gained the knowledge. Maybe it's because they haven't put any effort forward into trying to acquire the knowledge. In other words, how to change. You can't change from outside in, okay? You have to change inside out. So, and that requires a great deal of effort, discipline, and work. But it also requires a little bit of know-how too. All right, so that is our obstacle and challenge. Now, the help and advice we have is that of Canes. And Canes is in the upright, so it's very, very positive. I have this tattooed on my hand. This talks about the torch, the light, the beacon, that light bulb going off. So vision, knowledge, revelations, inspiration. Talks about creativity, technical abilities, in fact. Harness power to create your own reality. So we saw that twice today. It talks about the power of light, and light, simply dispels all of the darkness, doesn't it? The moment you turn on that light, it has the darkness fleeing, so to speak. And sometimes the light can be so intense that you have to shield your eyes because they cannot take the intensity of that light. Light, when it's focused, is a laser. Light amplified, stimulated by emissions of radiant energy. Laser. Okay, it's an acronym. So the power of light also is part of this particular energy. And it talks about how strength is available to you now. And the strength deals with being able to see these things that are being thrown at you, or dealing, that you're being, tested with, like our obstacles and challenges, Urus, and the reverse, and being able to successfully transmute that energy into something more positive. So it talks about the vital fire of life. It talks about rapport, passion, and sexual desire. Again, the Vikings have no problems discussing things such as intimacy and things of that nature. Okay, and nor should we. But things have gotten way out of hand today, and people are being absolutely controlled by their desires instead of controlling them. So they're just like little kids, walking around, or a dog in heat or something like that, dry humping every leg they can find. So, and as a result of that, some of them have picked up, things that they may not be able to get rid of. So if you are being intimate with people out there, and that's your choice, no judgment, then be very, very careful. That's another thing that I've been cautioned about over the last several months. All right, now in terms of our final, or our future outcome, we have the God Tyr's room. We have Tiwas show up. Now, the God Tyr is the god of, I'll just say, lump it up into leadership. He was a leader in many ways. He set the precedent for the other gods as far as his sheer will, his stoicness, I guess, So all the traits and attributes and everything else that define a leader, a true leader, somebody who inspires, people to follow because they know that he is right. It's absolutely right. You know. So it is the warrior's rune. It's the rune of courage and sacrifice. The rune of justice and honor and leadership, as I've already stated, authority, of rationality and knowing, of someone who knows their own strengths. One of the 11 leadership attributes. Self-sacrificing. The story about the god Tyr was that he surrendered up his arm to the great beast Fenrir in order that they may be able to actually bind him until the final day, Ragnarok, when he will break his chains, his fetters, and he will kill Odin himself, and one of Odin's other sons will slay that beast. We'll also see the same thing with the god Thor. He will actually battle the great world serpent. He will slay that serpent, but he will take approximately 9 steps. That's a very magical number in Norse numerology. And basically on that 9th step, he too will fall dead as a result of the venom from that giant serpent. Okay. Now remember, Thor himself is half giant. Okay. Now, anyways, it talks about one's victories and success in their endeavors. And this also talks about success in legal matters. So we're seeing legal matters come up again and again and again every week. At some point, they allude to it, or they're very clear about it, that there is going to be some type of legal dispute, or some type of a, fight that you're going to have to well, contest. I don't know what that's going to be. It's going to be different for each and every one of us. But in the end, you are going to be successful. You are going to be, you know, the one who comes out. Not necessarily unscathed, but you will be victorious. And that's a good place to leave it. Okay? So I promised I'd try to keep these shorter. I have so much to share with you that are related to these things, but, I have to be honest with myself. I know that sometimes I can ramble on, and not everybody shares my understanding of things or beliefs and so on. And that's fine. I get it. It's taken me decades, to gather a lot of the information that I have, and I can't stop in the middle of reading and say, here's the document, check it out. Here's the Senate report, here's the congressional hearings, here's the actual newspaper clipping, and this, that, and the other thing. I have those things, but, I do that in my writing. I always give sources and everything else, so you can go back and check it yourself and see that, well, he's not crazy. He's not making this shit up. There it is. It's right there on that page that he said by that author in that book. And that book is written by the very perpetrators I'm revealing, and things of that nature, because they don't think we're that smart. They really don't. And it's getting more and more apparent today. And I'm talking about the megalomaniacs who are willfully being used today to ruin our existence. And in some cases, literally trying to kill a majority of humanity. I mean, during the COVID outbreak, it was literally written in stone in a place in Heber County, Georgia, which is the highest peak in Georgia, basically. They have a monument that looks very similar to Stonehenge in some ways. Well, maybe not so much. But it is a very, great monument, especially being here in America, with several slabs of granite. And on that, in multiple languages, from the most ancient languages, Sanskrit, which is basically Hindi, ancient Hindu writing, and so on, and, of course, English as well. Their version of their 10 Commandments. And within 2 of those commandments, 2 out of the 10 that they present there for their new order of the ages and how it will be more or less instituted, it talks about basically reducing the world's population down to approximately 500 million people. Well, if there are 8 billion currently in this world, then, trying to get that stated goal means well over 90% of us have to go. And we've seen that through their forced inoculations like COVID. I told you it was a false flag, and again, I can prove it. But it's a whole nother scenario. And I do plan someday to start a website just dealing with those kinds of things and making website. I'm still not in a position where I really can invest in this like I want to. There's just so many other things I'm dealing with right now, and not just my own personal things, my own personal life. And that's just the way that it is. I have to believe that these things that are happening for a reason. I'm just putting my best effort forward, and eventually I'll get to a point where I can do the things that I feel compelled to do, and in a way that will be, very helpful and will hopefully bless the collective out there who are also trying very hard to understand, the craziness of our world today. It seems out of control, and very much, I would have to say that it is, because the majority of the people have no idea what's going on around them, and they put their trust and given their sovereignty away to groups of people who have no business, running their own lives, let alone ours, or a nation of any kind, big or small. So until we become more enlightened to that, and again, that doesn't mean everybody should pack a gun and friggin' or a sword and start hacking and shooting and things like that. That's not what I'm stating. There may come a day when that necessarily will be the case. Will very much be the case, in fact. And when it does, I'll be one of the first ones out there. But until it becomes apparent, that will be the only way to throw off the shackles, of this servitude that they have us in. And every one of you out there is a debt slave, at the very least. That's how they steal your energy, your life force, your essence, because you willingly have made an agreement in a contractual form, meaning that it's legal and that you've basically submitted to their terms, which means I give you so much time, effort, my abilities, and so on, and you give me so much money in regards to that so I can live in this crazy world. But then they change the value of what that money is worth. So you're giving more and more effort. You're able to buy less and less products or the things that you need, your needs and necessities. And as a result, they're literally siphoning away your life force. And it goes far, far beyond what most people even have put together in their own head. And I'm not just talking taxes. You're literally taxed in everything that you have to ask their permission for, which, again, is not right. This government was never set up that way. And I can't speak for all governments. Some governments are very clear that they have and will continue to oppress their people until those people rise up and do something about it. But that's a whole nother subject. I'm going to leave you, hopefully, in peace, since this was a good reading and everything else. So stay victorious, everybody out there. And remember, even if it doesn't feel like you're being victorious right now, everything around you indicates otherwise. Victory is definitely in your future. So don't give up. Don't give in. Just be the hero of your own life journey and so on. Be the warrior and everything else, because nobody's going to come and save you or anything of that nature. But as a collective, we can change things. We can do that, with our spiritual energies combined in like thought, and that life energy, just like the negative energy that those people I'm talking about try to create for everybody, keep you in fear, keep you down, keep you worried, and all these kinds of things. Those are all negative and low vibrational energies. So we have to break out of that, and you start putting the positive energies, and the more of us that are doing that, and it is happening, by the way, then the more likely a positive outcome can come of this. And it doesn't have to be a one-for-one type of a thing. The light energy is far more powerful, okay? We just have fewer people willingly and knowingly participating in it, so. But it doesn't take many, okay? And there are plenty of examples of what I'm saying in all the religious texts and dogma that you can find, regardless of what it is. One angel can take on an entire freaking army all by itself. We see that all over the Old Testament, for example, in Christianity. So, and of course, look at Hinduism. Krishna was right in the middle of the greatest battle of all time, the Mahabharata, and he was giving life lessons to his greatest disciple in the middle of it. He was driving his, carriage and everything else. So you have this God man literally driving the carriage, the horse carriage and everything else of his disciple Arjuna in the middle of this greatest of all battles, because they were relatives fighting one against the other and, trying to get their rightful dynasty back that was usurped from them. And anyway, I don't want to talk about too much dogma. I just extended the length of this another 5 minutes, so I'll leave you to it. And I hope that my enthusiasm will inspire somebody else out there to go out and start looking at and do some comparative research on your own, or critical thinking, scientific reasoning and so on. Don't believe anything from anybody, me included. Not at all. Go out there and, test the spirits. That's what you're supposed to do. If you're a Christian and what have you, that's what you do. Whether you're an atheist or a spiritualist or whatever the case may be. How do you know that you're doing the right things unless you literally, kicked over every stone to see, and your trial and error by actually putting these things into practice. Okay, enough preaching. I apologize. I don't mean to be preachy, not at all. I'm just trying to share because I'm enthusiastic about breaking free and, kicking their ass. questions. Long story short. So, I mean, they pissed me off for a long time. So, and I fought for this damn country, and they had me fooled, or I had me fooled. I always had little suspicions. I saw the signs, but I wasn't grown up enough, or I guess you could say brave enough to really look into it myself at that time. So I didn't know the right questions either. Anyway, y'all take care, and I'll see you again soon. Okay? Bye.